I know, I'm surprised too. Alright, so if you guys been following me for a while, at least from the 200 and earlier subscriber count, I got started doing this type of stuff because originally I wanted to do a cosplay channel, and then I started doing other video game related stuff on the side to try to fill in the gaps. Well, then I split it off and now I have a cosplay channel, Malonze Productions Cosplay, and I turned this into a video game channel, which then devolved into just private server content. Either way, I got my start with my very first video game related video on Revelations WoW. What is Revelation WoW? That I filmed with my goddamn phone and a tripod. So you could definitely see it in the quality. And god, my videos were terrible. My videos are still terrible, but they are much better than they used to be. Anyway, Revelations WoW. So, I started off this by saying I have a deep history with Revelations WoW, from it being the first topic that I covered to I got even involved behind the scenes doing artwork for the server. And I know I didn't go into deep down specifics, especially behind the curtain stuff, and I would like to keep it that way, but I did talk about a lot of stuff that was at least in the public eye, a lot of issues here and there, and I remember I was getting more and more frustrated. If you would look at my earlier streams of Turtle WoW when I started talking about Revelations WoW, I was getting more and more frustrated. It was just a bunch of different things that all could be traced back to Willzor. Willzor was the primary issue of this server, from his terrible leadership to his just... I've already made a video long time ago. This was the last video I made on Revelation WoW until this video that covered the downfall of Revelation WoW. Down from him making bad choices that led to issues, him having terrible just customer support, I guess is the best way. He was an asshole, basically. There's no denying. He was an asshole to everybody. New people, even people who have been on and supportive for the longest time, even his own, like, team members that were on there helping him develop this server. He was just mean. That's the only really way to describe it without going, into really bad name calling. But on top of all of that, I have evidence, and I posted all my evidence, all of conversations I've had with people of theft, of lying, of illegal activity, supposedly. All this stuff, all down to Willzor. Again, primary issue of this server. And when the server came out, I'm sure everyone remembers, Launch 1 failed, Launch 2 failed, Launch 3 failed, even though the betas went pretty well. So what happened? We'll get into that a little bit later, because that comes back around again. But it was like, what the hell? And all Willzor could do was blame everyone else. Even though, again, we're going to come back to this, but it was all his fault, obviously, but it's deeper than that. And the server it just shut down. It's like, okay, that's it. And it pulled the plug, and then it went radio silent for a good year or two. When did it come out? 2021? Was it 21 or 22? Either way, it's been more than a year since it just went radio silent. Well, as of, I think a couple days ago, somebody sent a screenshot of the Revelations WoW Discord, which I'm surprised was still up. I thought he wiped that Discord. He wiped it already once, and then I thought he wiped it again. But anyway, somebody who's still on that Discord server sent me a screenshot of an important announcement, which is this right here, from Wrecked by Faith, who is the co-founder of Revelations WoW. He is actually the founder. Willzor jumped on and was a co-founder at that point. But anyway, from Wrecked by Faith, at everyone. I know a few things have been crazy in the world, but I wanted to announce something today. As of today, which is 7/22 of 23, Willzor is no longer a part of the staff. I have removed him from staff, and he will not be a part of staff again. This means I will be the sole founder, along with my fiance, wrecked by lulz. I don't want to get into the details of it so that I do not have bad blood with anyone. So I ask that you respect that. He does a little bit go into a tiny bit of what happened, but I'm sure there's tons more stuff that he just doesn't want to get into, and that's fair enough. Anyway, but know that this was my know that this decision was not easy. It was my decision, and it had to be done for reasons that will remain unknown. With that being said, I will be dropping a very large announcement in regards to Revelations WoW in a positive way. So that is, again, where we're going to come back around to, and we're going to go here. Now, the website itself was shut down a while ago. This is the new website that is now opened, and it just opened up, I believe, this morning. No, last night, 29th of July, which was last night as of this video. So, I already read through it, but we're going to read through it again. It is a long post, so, we'll see what happens. But anyway, firstly, welcome back to the main website. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And then, here's what happened. Contrary to belief, I started this project initially by myself and my fiance. Will was brought onto the team close to about 7 months later because of his expertise. He claimed he had past experience with WoW modding, as well as being more proficient in security and networking. Being me, I had no idea how a lot of things worked on the core side, and I was still very new to the scene. He was meant to be that bridge for me. I never had touched a server, never had touched code, and it was all a foreign concept to me. So we needed somebody who could guide us here. As many folks recall, the beta was a lot better than the release itself. I can attest to that because I played the closed beta as well as the open betas, and besides, random bugs here and there, which is par for the course, I mean, it ran fairly well. I never had issues with it until the launch. Anyway, a lot of folks ask why this is the case and blame it on the Murloc Tuskar edition. I did that too, so... However, that is only a little part of the truth. A few days, at least 2 to 3 prior to the release, it was suggested that we had to recompile the core with updates that were not yet tested before in order to stay up to date with them. While I had strong opinions about it, I supported his stance on it because it was given to me, as it was either going to happen or release wouldn't happen. So basically he was given an ultimatum by Will. We either do this now or we're not releasing. And being me, I try to keep my promises. So we went for the recompile. Later I found Will had ignored members of the team's concerns that we were not ready to release. I hadn't realized the severity until after the server was released, something we both learned to never do again. In addition, I was recommended by him during the development to fund a $115 OVH server for the game host, as well as the 6 or so download servers that were $30 to $50 a piece. This went on for months, draining my own pocket, and then later also draining his. Only after our server release did we realize that we could have cut the cost and for it to be much less. This infuriated me because it was meant to. He was already meant to know this. Not to mention the sheer amount of workload he put on me trying to learn and understand how these programs work, rather than letting me work on the server stuff like the maps. Which I didn't know he worked on the maps. He told me to work on maps, and I was doing that, and I was wondering, why are all these maps popping up? There was also another person working on maps, too, and he was one of the people who contacted me after the Fall of Revelations video. But anyway, back on topic. Don't get me wrong, he also put a large workload on himself, but nevertheless, he made both of our lives difficult in the process. It's a way now to thank him because I can run things by myself, but it's also infuriating. There was even a point where I was trying to push fixes at times, and he would threaten to shut down the server if I didn't do it in a specific way. I could totally believe that. After we announced that we were going back into development, he basically stopped working on the development side of things. He had set up an internal server for us to work on, but overall took a step back. This was also during a time when he had an emergency medical issue, which is fair enough. But I took the horns of the bull and led the project. You're supposed to say the. Oh, never mind. And led the project back to a better place. By September, we were working at full speed. I also want to mention, before continuing, throughout this time, Will being on staff, he was very toxic and harsh to staff. I can attest to that. I can absolutely attest to that. It was something we were working on together, but it was also something that was constantly happening, resulting in a lot of issues. There would be good people who would get into arguments with Will and then leave the next day after, or get fired, simply because all of these people are replaceable to him. Again, absolutely, I can attest to this and agree with it. One of my now good friends who I met through Will, Desserts, was working on the project full-time and had developed medical issues during the release, I'm sorry. When we made posts that we were working on as much as possible to get things working, we meant it with all of our hearts. Me, Desserts, and Will all slept less than 3 hours a night. Will himself would sleep probably even less. These issues were piling up, and while we all agreed to let go of the past, it was still strain. However, there was a final straw. In late November of last year roughly, Will wanted to get back into the swing of things, and I showed him what was being worked on and things of that nature. He wanted to then impress everyone by moving the core over to a kata-based core. While it sounded like a great idea at the time, it wasn't. I had warned him about changing this to the core and how and the amount of work that would it take. But he guilt-tripped me into it, and we also tried it. The production halted on our current core because of how the data transfer works. From our core to the kata core, and overall things paused. Every month and a half I would tell Will this wasn't a good idea, but he didn't listen. Finally, around May of this year, I put my foot down and told him we had to stop this. We were making little to no progress and it wasn't worth it. He argued with it indirectly, but eventually concluded in agreement. The agreement was a heated one, but we determined that we would work on communication. But from that point on, it felt like walking on eggshells, and I couldn't handle it anymore. Or any longer, rather. Finally, a few days after I spoke to him, I gave him an hour to write something to the public if he wanted. I tried to talk to him about issues and worries that I had in regards to him still being on the staff. I suggested he would step down, but he refused. It was a 5-hour-long conversation that ended in him aggravating me. It could have been a 10-minute conversation, but instead it had to be 5 hours. He hurt a lot of people in the process, and a lot of things had to be done that weren't okay. But I followed through with them because that's what a team does. They stick by each other. However, after defending the actions he had done for so long, it was eating away at my spirit too much. It began to give me a pain and started interrupting my own personal life. This is the best way to summarize why he was removed. This doesn't mention what he had done that was positive, rather the reasons to why he was gone. I don't mean to bash anyone if that is what someone may see reading this. However, I want to show transparency in the best way possible, and that is by giving those who care to read my words the truth. I never agreed with Zero on what he did, but I also never agreed with how Will treated the situation. I don't know. Who's Zero? Oh, Zero was that new guy he brought on, I remember. I hope this explains things a bit better, and I apologize personally to everyone who's ever been hurt by Will or by myself through this, and I hope you can forgive me and we move forward with this. That was very long, and I am sorry for that, but real quick, before I go on to what is now happening, or what is happening, absolutely, everything he said there, again, I can attest to this. I'm not going to bring up personal things that happened behind the curtains while I was on board with the project itself. Again, if you want to see some of the stuff that other people have told me and sent to me and all this stuff, go watch my Fall of Revelations video. It talks about mostly like the launch and how terrible it was, and also everything Will does. You'll notice a lack of me talking about Wrecked because, again, while I was on there, the majority of the reasons that I had issues, other people had. People saw him and were out. They're like, nope, out. Or they could ask something as simple as, hey, blah, 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 and he would go off on them. It was terrible, and they would leave, or he would just ban them outright for whatever, no reason at all. And there were times, I'll say this at least, there were times where me and Will would butt heads over something fucking stupid and trivial, right? And then Will would pull me into a call. So I'm on call with him personally now. Argue, and he was just ferocious, right? And hot-headed. By the way, calling him hot-headed was one of the reasons why I was banned. That's a mild term, by the way, hot-headed. Anyway, any issues, I will say this, that I had with Wrecked was indirect solely because of Willzor. I never had any true issues with Wrecked. Whenever I got into a heated argument with Willzor, it was a good cop, bad cop in the literal sense. Because after Willzor talked to me, then Wrecked would come on and talk to me, and it went great. I gave my frustrations, he would give me his part, but in the end, we walked away agreeing with each other and being, alright, cool bro, see you tomorrow, So, there was one time, I will say, at the end, and not Willzor, I'm sorry, Wrecked, if you are watching this video, there was maybe towards the end there that I may have gotten a little frustrated with you, but again, it was mostly because it's ricocheting off of Willzor's attitude, and anything, if you remember it, because I don't remember anything at all, but anything that you may remember that I would have said to you just in frustration or whatever, I do deeply apologize for that, alright? Again, I never really had issues with you directly, so we cool, bro. So anyway, those thoughts aside, now you guys see at least a little bit into what was going on behind the scenes. Now, that's the biggest thing. The reason why Revelation WoW was failing, all of the reasons go down to Willzor. Now, he's gone. So, what is happening next? Is Revelation WoW back? Is it the revelations of Revelation WoW 2.0? Okay, let's continue on. After Will was removed, oh my god, sorry about that, the staff was revived. Yes, definitely. And the progress has been moving quickly. The first thing that I wanted to do was bring back old staff. This means folks such as Zero, I never knew Zero left actually, and Lambie. I do know Lambie left. That's another story for another day, but I'm glad Lambie is back on. He was a cool dude. And he was British, so that's he's a double cool dude. Zero is back and assisting with the website and launcher. Yeah, Zero was brought on during the launch as an assistant to help develop on the launcher side. I do remember those posts. Anyway, he was the main person who will be managing these two things and will continue to do so. It is important to me that his name is cleared from what was said before about him, and he is once again seen in good light. As for Lambie returning, it shows how significant of a change this will be. Will leaving and how much it has changed the atmosphere of the server and staff. In addition to these two, there are many more returning on the back end. However, recently we have implemented new rule set which allows GMs to show their face on this Discord if they wish to do so. Thus, you may see some new names popping up on the right side. With that being said, things have gone underway. Our launcher has been put into development, remade from scratch, which was another issue I talked about in my Fall of Revelation video. The past problems with the old one redesigned professionally. Below you will find the new design for them, and there's the news. I can't click on them and expand them, so I'm sorry about that. Say I can't do that. This, of course, including our website, once again launched, and the possibility of registration among other things. In addition to that, we have implementation of a new class, the Necromancer. Okay, tangent real quick. So people called out Azeroth at War for being the Revelation WoW copycat because they had playable Murlocs. with armor. Now these guys are copying them because they're making a necromancer class. Though, our necromancer is a DPS healer, which will be using bone disease and blood magic. More info on this later. So that's going to differentiate theirs versus Azeroth at Wars, is that theirs is a healer spec, while Azeroth at War is a tank spec. Well, tank and DPS, while these guys are DPS and healer. Anyway, finally, we have a full functioning development server up 24 hours, 24/7, for all of our developers to be able to work on the project no matter what time of day they are. So that's telling me that that was an issue before. I don't remember that, but anyway, as of today, we have completely changed the we have a completely new change, I'm sorry about that, to the starting zone and the standard zone to get their racial. Okay, so I remember playing in the beta and they forced you to do this like 8 quest long starting zone no matter what race you are. I asked Willzor, I said, hey, this is cool and all, but give people a choice. I don't want to be forced to do a linear starting zone, especially because you did not get experience while doing that. So it was a waste of a half an hour where you're not progressing your character other than getting a racial and learning server lore, you know what I mean? So I told him, like, at least add experience to it to make it worth somebody's while, otherwise it's just a big waste of time. So now they get to choose to start the main storyline whenever they would like, rather than being forced immediately upon them. That's a very good change, and that's something I suggested way back in the day. If they choose not to do this, they still have access to the main storyline without the prelude of the zone. We currently have multiple members of the staff back on the server working hard to ensure that zones are finished and fully functional, ready for playtesting. And there's some of the zones. That actually, I think, is the starting zone, maybe? No, it looks different. I do remember the circle of, like, the runestones, but it was a lot darker than I remember. Well, when I was playing, it was darker than how it is there. Yeah, because then you go up this way to where Chromie is, so... yeah, it definitely looks a lot different. It's definitely a lot different from how I remember. All of this has gone underway within the past week since Will has left the staff, and we do not plan on losing steam. As of right now, we are welcoming back anyone or extending an offer of conversation to anyone that had an issue with Will. And of course, we are recruiting staff. Now, I will say I do not plan on going back on staff. Just, I still have a lot of PTSD from working with Will. I know he's not there anymore, but also I've taken on a lot of new projects just in life, and I'm also helping behind the scenes on Azeroth at War as well as Legacy of Lordaeron. So I just don't have the time to do it anymore. So I will not be applying to be staff again. But I feel like I think it's time to start covering this server again. You know, the hype is back up, man. I'm getting pumped. Anyway, blah, 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 and that's pretty much the end of it. That's just the wrap-up, which is pretty much an overall of what happened here. So, that was a long post. But anyway, yeah, this server, when I first played it, I thought, the second I saw the trailer for it, back years ago, I was hyped. I wanted to play this server so bad. I got on there, I made my first video, I got involved with it. Revelation WoW brought me back to private servers 2 years after Classic WoW launched, because I played private servers before that. My very first one was Chronos back in, when was Draenor? 2016. And then from Chronos, I went to, what was it, Elysium, and then Light's Hope. There was another one in between, and then Northdale, and then all of those servers, well, besides Chronos, shut down for Classic WoW. I played Classic WoW, I thought it was shit, I quit, and I went 2 years without playing WoW. And then Revelation WoW came back, and that was my first step back into private servers. And then from there, I went to Turtle WoW, and then I went to Epoch WoW, and all of the servers that I cover today. So, definitely huge history with this. When I played the server, I absolutely loved it. Like, the server itself was fun. Besides the launch, I never had an issue with the server. I loved how they took Thunder Totem from Legion and turned that into Thunder Bluff. The giant desert in the where Swamp of Sorrows is supposed to be, because Swamp of Sorrows is gone. And unless they changed it since I last played the beta, Swamp of Sorrows is gone. Blasted Lands is gone. It's all a big desert with like these crystals and shit hanging out. You couldn't go into there, but I was a hunter, so I used Eagle Eye and I was checking it out, right? I was checking out areas you were not supposed to go. I was even checking out like Stone Talon Mountains, which they didn't let us go into in the beta. And it was all really cool. So I don't remember if they used the new race models or not, but I think it was new models. Yes, new models with Wrath of the Lich King like talents and abilities, but a vanilla plus world. So that's how the game functioned, and it was very unique and very, very hyped. But a lot of that steam withered out with that terrible launch, and the fact that they launched it with only level 20 as the cap. And that was just a bad idea. Just bad idea. So Project Epoch definitely handled that way better. They were doing their betas. Okay, level 20, now level 40, 45, whatever it was. And now they're doing level 60 beta pretty soon. And then they have their whole launch. Revelation WoW definitely needed to do it that way rather than 2 or 3 betas in the level 1 to 20 zone and then launching just that. And then leaving nothing else to do, which made people get bored. And also, there's no PvP because you can't cross zone. They didn't even let you in the zones. They teleported you out of zones you were not supposed to go to. So players couldn't even mesh together to do PvP, even though it was a PvP server. A lot of issues, but that was all because of the launch, the terrible launch. That aside, now that they're back in the swing of things, they're working probably on zones that were not finished initially from level 20 and beyond. They're going back and redoing starting zones. I am very optimistic. You know, the Troublemaker is gone. He's out. Lambie's a good dude. I talked to him personally. Lambie's a good dude. I never got to meet Zero. He was brought on after I left. Rect is a good guy, like I said. All the other people that I met on there, they're cool dudes, alright? So definitely, we're going to keep an eye on this server. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it, and I will be covering it, especially now that I've been re-invited back to the Discord. Thank you, Rect. So, anyway, that is the end of this video. It's gone on way too long. Anything that happened in the past, I would like to keep it in the past. If you yourself are curious to anything I mentioned or whatever, I do have segmented clips of videos of me talking about issues at the time and after the time on playlists. You're going to find some of them in the Turtle WoW playlist because I talked about the issues while playing Turtle WoW, so they're on the Turtle WoW playlist. And then I have a whole Revelation WoW playlist that you could check out. So anyway, that is it for this video. I will see you guys next time.